something that can be a problem is if you hook up a garden hose directly to this gray water line coming out of your sink, you're getting the smell of gas inside here because there's no P-trap in these sinks. It just literally drains straight down. So if that garden hose is hooked up, if it doesn't have a bend, if you put a bend in it, then it builds up pressure, which fills your sink back up and the water doesn't drain correctly. And conversely, if you put the bend in it to stop the gas from coming back in, working like a P-trap, then it doesn't flow correctly. So the solution to that is to build yourself a little bit of a sort of makeshift vent, since these pop-ups you can't actually put a proper vent on it. So the way to do this, you get yourself a T, and then you get these two little fittings. They sell them at Lowe's and Home Depot. One is an FHT slip, 3/4 inch, and then the other one is a 3/4 inch slip MHT. That's just the way that these fittings work, is basically taking a garden hose type adapter. These are usually used for irrigation, but this garden hose type adapter, which will adapt to these 5/8 pieces, they also connect to the regular plumbing. So we take this little one with the washer inside of it. This is the 3/4 inch FHP slip, and I can screw that directly onto that fitting, and now I get a regular pipe fitting out here. So now I just need to add a T to that, and in order to do that, I just have to stick it in here and make it just long enough that it'll adapt into there. So in this case, it's about 1.5 inches-ish. So I take that. Now I could use a pipe cutter. However, if you use a pipe cutter on this stuff, it makes a little lip that you have to trim off. And honestly, if you have a little bit of pipe sealant and you just do it with a hacksaw, this does not have to be that perfect. So if you're a little long, a little short, it's no big deal. And honestly, it doesn't really even need to be glued per se, because there's no pressure in this water. But I would recommend that you do it. So now we've got this coming straight out, and it gives us a T. So then we just have to put a place to put that garden hose here. This, I could make it go clear to the ground. I could put a P-trap on there, but the reality is I could just take that garden hose, put a little bend in it down here with whatever I happen to have at camp, setting it over a box or whatever, and build that P-trap down here with the garden hose, instead of trying to build a monstrosity here that I'm gonna have to carry around. So I just need one more of those little pieces. So again, doesn't really matter too much about that length. You can make it as long as you want, but in this case, I'm gonna make it just about as short as it can be, just about 1.5 inches, 2 inches long. I'm not even putting this in any kind of special thing, because even if this isn't exactly square, it's fine. So I take that, clean up those little bit of bushings, or the shavings, I push that into there, and I push this up into here. And in this case, I got a little bit showing, but not much. All right, now I need a vent on this. In this case, if I was to just make the vent this tall, it would probably work, but ideally, you want to bring this up just a little bit. So I'm going to bring it up. I'm going to put this pipe up here, pull it there, and I'm going to try, and I'm going to attach this. Now this is basically a Studer vent. They've got a couple of different names. This is the really cheap one. They make nicer ones, but as a pop-up camper, I'm not really using that much. It's got a little rubber gasket in here that allows the gas to go in, but not come out. And that's what's going to keep that pressure inside there and keep that water from siphoning out. So I take this and I adapt this to this is kind of tricky here. So you're running to a 1.5 inch Schedule 40 adapter, and that's going to step down to, I believe it's a 1.5 inch, 1.5 inch threaded to 1.5 inch slip, and that allows this piece to just screw right into there. But the problem is now I've got 1.5 inches, so this one can be really tricky to find. And this is that 1.5 inches down to 3/4 inch coupler. But by putting that in there and then attaching it up here, and I want to put this I don't want to accidentally to worry about hitting it with anything. So I'm going to try and bring it up to, you know, really, actually, I guess it would be a little bit better to bring it above the sink. So you can use your judgment. I don't want to see it from inside if I ever have the windows open, so I'm not going to put it any higher than that. We're going to do this. We just take this little pipe, shove it in here, figure about where we want this. In this case, I'm going to leave a little overlap there. So that's going to be right here. And ideally I have a pencil on me, but I don't even happen to have a pencil right now. Again, I can trim this later. I take this, I'm going to cut it. Really easy with a good hacksaw. A few seconds. Clean off the burrs. Now, this piece goes into that. This piece goes into that. And there we go. We're done. So you can see here, tilt that back just a little bit. You can see I've got a vent, and I've got that same fitting that I had here. My garden hose just still connects directly to this and goes down and drops into the gray water line. And ideally, you have the little adapters to make it properly seal at the actual gray water. But now, when water comes out of the sink, it's going to drop straight down. Gas won't come back because of the little kink in the hose at the bottom I'm going to put down here. Down at the bottom, it'll have a little bend. And now the air can come in here, and instead of venting that gas out my sink on the inside, I can do this. And now, this little device, I can carry around. And this is all I have to have with me to solve that problem. Now, if I wanted to, this has no water that's going to go through there. It's just gas, so this doesn't actually need to be glued in this section here. But I would recommend that you glue these together, at least, on these two bends, because this could leak water. It's not going to be a lot of pressure, probably never going to leak, especially if you just plug those in good and tight. But if you happen to have it, go ahead and add some glue. But if you happen to be on a camping trip and you're suffering from this, you can make this for probably, this is the most expensive part. I think it's $7. So this might be about $15 in total parts. And what did that take? You know, could be done in 5 minutes if you're not trying to explain to somebody else at the same time. And it's only a few seconds to attach it to your camper. And this will solve your stinky gas in the camper problem. If you're draining into a bucket, obviously this isn't as important, but certainly if you are plugged into utilities at the camper, I'd recommend it.